We're student reviewed, movies, games, travel, entertainment, pop culture. We cover it all. This is, oh boy, we've been covering Comic-Con in San Diego Comic-Con for a long time. This is, what, our third year, fourth year doing panels at WonderCon. Anyway, several years in a row. Yesterday we talked about some upcoming games, and today we're going to be talking about Fallout and the upcoming movies and TV series that are based upon video games. Now, I do want to mention ahead of time, this is mostly going to be discussion and Q&A because the vast majority of what we have has not even gone before the camera yet. It's still in the pitch, casting, whatever, and some of them you will find out they've been talked about for a long time, so they're literally in my I'll believe it when the cameras start rolling phase. But that's where we are, and we're going to start off with a film clip, show you something, and then get right into all the news and rumors. But first, I want to introduce everybody. So.
Hey, my name is Michael Newman. I think my voice is a little bit better than it was yesterday for those who weren't fortunate enough to hear me try to talk yesterday. I've been dealing with some laryngitis issues. But I've been working with Gareth at Student Review for about 10 years now. I'm part of the weekly podcast. I also do a lot of movie reviews, video game reviews, that sort of thing. So it's always good to see a lot of familiar faces that come back for our panels. We obviously do San Diego Comic-Con as well, and we are part of Phoenix Fan Fusion as part of the panel rollout as well. So again, really excited to be here and kind of discuss some of the stuff with you guys.
I am Karen Newman. I am this cool guy's wife, and so I have been working with Gareth and now also for about 10 years. Same stuff, movie reviews, TV reviews. I'm not part of the podcast, but just excited to be here again. I absolutely love WonderCon, and I love doing these panels, and we're happy that you're here on this rainy Sunday.
Victor Calderon. I mainly do Disney, and occasionally I'll do the press as I'm administrative. Outside of that, I'm a freelance accounting assistant in film and television industry.
Okay, and of course, is too sick to be talking because the voice is shot, but my wife is there doing the video, and she always has some very great comments and opinions on topics. So before we get into the questions, let me give you this quick scene here to enjoy. If the thing decides to work. Here we go. Michael, would you like to kick off the discussion of the next one?
Yeah, so I think a lot of you have probably seen the Borderlands movie tie-in already. There's a lot of controversy about it already, even though it just released or it's about to release. With the time frame being pushed back, the movie was officially done filming 2 years ago, and then they did the reshoots, and there's some rumors that the writers have asked for their name. One writer has been asked to have his name removed from the title. What I've seen from an overall visual perspective, I like, but one of the things, and we kind of talked about this for those of you who were in the video game panel yesterday, I know we're kind of repeating ourselves a bit. One of the things that I brought up about Borderlands, which I also have had problems with other movies in the past, was where you go with actors or actresses that are popular currently, but don't necessarily tie into their on-screen personas. Casting tends to really focus more on who's popular with the media right now versus how do they compare with their on-screen personas, which I think has always been a big problem. And what I'm afraid is going to happen, which we've seen happen in the past, is when you go with star power versus, I guess, how the legacy characters look, it can actually kind of divide the fan base between those who are going to the show based on they like Kevin Hart or they like whomever it happens to be, versus those who are purists who like, why is this person casted as them looking anything like this character, that sort of thing. So I think it's going to be, we're going to have a lot to be seeing. My personal thoughts on a lot of these things is I've tended to be a little bit happier with the streaming shows more so than the video game movies over the past. But we'll kind of see how that one goes. But that's what I think one of the big concerns with Borderlands is coming out. again, I think a lot of people were excited to get some on-screen time with that. Again, it's another one of those franchises that could have easily been a slam dunk, but sometimes they Hollywood things up a bit too much. So,
Karen, Victor, do you have anything to say on Borderlands, or do you want to pick one of the other topics?
Well, when it comes to, it's not necessarily what's popular, it's who's gonna get you the money to make your movie. And it's too popular because it's no longer just the United States as a driving force behind these movies. You have to worry about other countries, other continents that are now making up more of the money that's being put in there. But it's gonna be interesting. I for one like the idea of horror movie directors doing these types of movies because I feel like they have a little bit more of the knowledge to be able to take on these like big tasks. So I was excited for Eli Roth, but then I think David Leitch took over.
Yeah, Roth stepped away to work on Thanksgiving, and then they had someone else come in and work on the reshoot, so that's, yeah.
I'm excited for the Borderlands. Going back to the thing about who is the star power and who will get the money and everything, I still have to go with I'm just so into more characters, and so I have a viewpoint when I'm playing the characters and everything of who they are and what they are, and it's so hard to see like a major star step into it as opposed to somebody else that is more in my mind when I'm playing the game for years and years and years of who that character is. And then I'm like, oh, I know this is not a good example, but like Reese Witherspoon playing a Borderlands character, it just won't work for me, even though I know she would bring in the money. I know that's not who's in the movie, but I would much rather have somebody that would be much more what's in my brain when I watch the movie, and I would just enjoy it more as much as I like to also see a lot of fun big movie stars in it too, but so I don't know, but I am absolutely excited for it. I love the characters. I love the land. Borderlands. No, I love it all. So I think it's going to be exciting. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be interesting, and I hope it does well. I hope it does. I hope they did a good job with it.
Looks like a fun movie.
Yeah, it's a fun. That's it. It just looks fun, and I like fun.
and I mean, there's nothing wrong with fun movies either. I'm all about fun movies. It's about what people's expectations are going into it as well, right? I don't think anybody's expecting to be an Oscar-worthy movie or presentation by any means. So I'm okay with a fun movie as long as they don't overly play to that and actually have a story that goes along with it too.
So we'll go through a couple of other rumored and or in production films, and then there's a few that obviously we're going to stop on to discuss in detail. So just quick through: Sonic the Hedgehog 3 out in December. Five Nights at Freddy's 2 is in pre-production. We all know about The Legend of Zelda. Jack Black's been attached to it. They finished primary filming on the Mortal Kombat sequel, the very graphic live-action one that they did recently. It's supposed to get returned to Silent Hill, Death Stranding. And that brings us to The Last of Us. So obviously we had a picture of it. So our latest rumor is that apparently the third game is in early production now that the massive online thing, and this has created a little bit of a quandary because you remember the great problem HBO Max had with Game of Thrones about that new book's coming, right? That new book's coming, right? And eventually they said, we can't wait anymore, we're going to make our own ending, and we all saw what happened. So that's kind of where they are with The Last of Us. And what we're hearing is that since The Last of Us 2 is such a long game, I mean, you get to the end of it, or what you think is the end of it, and then all of a sudden you play pretty much the same length as a different character from their perspective. One of the rumors is it's going to be split into, it's essentially going to be 2 seasons worth of content to tell the game. So, but what are you expecting from season 2?
Well, I'm sorry.
I was just going to quick say is that I think it would be considered a split 2 seasons because then you're going to have Pedro Pascal going to do Fantastic Four. So it might not just be because of the way storyline.
And it's hard to get into it without spoilers for those who haven't played the game. I'm not going to spoil it here. But I will say that the one thing that was, again, when we kind of talk about the movies versus the television shows or the streaming shows, yeah, I think they do, for whatever reason, they tend to do a much better job of, whether it's the format or the time frame, kind of staying closer to the source material. With Last of Us, I thought the casting of it was really well done. I thought they kept with the tone of the game pretty well. A lot of Easter eggs for those who played the game. Obviously, they took some side detours and how some of the character development went on, but for the most part, you can almost go scene by scene with some of the more iconic scenes in the game and compare them to the iconic scenes that they followed with the show as well. I think another one that's done a really good job with that lately is Halo, for those who have been following the Halo series. I thought season 2 has been a lot better than the first season. But again, I think with these longer formats where they can actually tell the stories, dive into the stories of the characters a little bit better, it allows them to do a lot more than what they could traditionally do in a 2-hour time frame. So again, I'm excited for Last of Us 2. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers, but it's it will definitely be a little bit darker tone, I think, than the first one. To put it mildly.
Darker.
I did not play the Last of Us game, but I know. I shouldn't even admit that in front of y'all. I should go crawl under the table now. However, I absolutely loved the show. Loved it, loved everything about it. And the whole time, because he has played both and The Last of Us, I'd be like, okay, so is this close? Is this close? Is that close? What's happening? And then he did tell me what goes on in The Last of Us 2. So I am excited to see what they do with this, with the second season. I'm excited to see where it goes. Even though it's going to be darker, but maybe I should play the game before I watch it. How much time do I have, like, before it comes out? Do they start filming?
They're filming, but we're hearing next year.
Oh,
Next year.
The remastered, then the re-remastered, and then the re-remastered.
I'm just gonna go with what you tell me.
Yeah,
I'll
go
just
with the
bother
latest
it the
one.
whole
Yeah,
time
right.
during the show again, but I loved it, so I'm excited for the second season. I love Pedro Pascal, he's fantastic in everything he does, and I just think they did a great job with it. I loved it, so I'm excited, and even though I haven't played the game.
Yeah, it's next year is when it should probably be coming out, is what they're saying. We just came off a year of strikes, but it started in May, but a lot of people I work with, we didn't work since 2022. The studios knew what they were going to do, and we didn't have any work for the most part. A few people I knew were able to work, but now that that's done, they're writing, they're going in front of cameras, and right now, with pending strikes with below the line workers, it looks promising that they won't. So hopefully a lot of the things that are coming out, we'll stay on track to come out next year.
Yeah, and one of the greatest things is that the streaming companies have been an absolute boon to this process, because, like, for example, Ubisoft has their own division that is dedicated to film and game production, and they are not stuck with, all right, how do we take a 20-hour game and stick it to a 2-hour movie? They have the freedom now to say, we can do an 8 to 10 to 12-hour season, and we're also not restricted on content. We can be as graphic as we need to be, tell the story, because if you tried to put it on TV, it was going to be watered down beyond belief. So, that has allowed us to have things like Twisted Metal. That's allowed us to have, Netflix is apparently working on a God of War series, and if you've ever seen God of War or played it, it's not, tame by any stretch.
And for those who haven't watched the animated series on Paramount Plus, they definitely weren't restricted on some of the violence they did on that too. So
Nope. They're talking.
Cyberpunk 2077, we've got that right now too.
No, exactly. They're talking about doing The Sims, and then, as anyone who knows who's played The Sims, it can be as PG to R rated to borderline. I mean, there were people who became serial killers in it and stuff like that. So,
People light their kitchen on fire.
Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of talk about an Assassin's Creed series is in the works for Netflix. Hopefully they erase the stain of that movie. We got a Minecraft thing, and that brings us to one that I know Michael and I absolutely love. This was supposed to be made into a film for Netflix, oh my goodness, about 4 years ago now? And it didn't happen. They were supposed to have Jake Gyllenhaal in it. The director, it's kind of like the BioShock thing. We keep hearing it's coming, and then it never actually comes to fruition. But they've told us the property is still there. There's stuff happening on the gaming side beyond DLC, and that is The Division is apparently still actively in the works. Now, how many of you have ever heard of The Division? Okay. So for those of you who don't know, it's essentially about their first game is set in New York, the second one's in DC. Someone decides to infect cash on Black Friday with what they basically call the super flu, and it wipes out huge chunks of the US population. And what's left is made up of roving gangs, all with their own interests and factions, and you play a special division agent who's tasked with finding out what this thing is and stopping it, and restoring the peace. And so it's a big open world adventure, solo play, co-op, lots of weaponry, lots of bad guys to face. And so I'm like, you know, I don't think movie, I think series would work. But Michael, Karen, Victor, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, the pandemic kind of slowed down some of the stuff, and also I think people want to wait till pandemic type games are a little bit more, not quite as raw with everybody, I think, right now. But I do think one of these, again, it's one of these ones that I think can be really successful if done correctly, and lends itself to multiple seasons too.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys?
I think there's some room for it down the line. They're still going. We have 10 years of The Walking Dead, plus another 2 or 3 TV shows that are going on. So they don't necessarily need to stop that. They can do it, and it could still be in the works. But yeah, with the money this costs, it'll probably be filmed somewhere in Europe.
Yeah, I think he's right. I mean, in terms of the pandemic, definitely made people think a show about bodies being piled up outside apartments and stuff like that may not have been the wisest move. And then you had the production delays, you had the strikes, but it is a very, it's a very open-ended franchise that they could do a lot with. So we know about The Witcher. I'm curious. We know kind of the reasons behind it. How do you feel about the recasting? Yeah, I had a feeling that was going to be answered. So Michael mentioned Halo, and now we want to make sure we have tons of time for you folks to ask questions. So we're going to rip through some of the rumors, and then we'll make some comments. But Until Dawn, which is getting a remaster for the PS5, which is a very good survival horror game, open-ended. If you like that, there's also one called The Quarry, which is similar. A lot of fun. If you have VR, there's a couple of similar Until Dawn, Rush of Blood, and then the company made another one similar. Gears of War has been talked about forever with Dave Bautista. Michael, you want to?
Yeah, Ghost of Tsushima, which is obviously a fairly new game, but one that they could easily draw a lot of lore from. Bioshock, we kind of talked about that. Stray, I think, has already been heavily rumored. Would you want to talk about Stray anyway?
I just want to talk about Stray because me and my lovely husband here have 11 cats, and most of them are strays. Actually, not really strays, but we all adopted. So I'm so excited if they really make a show, movie, anything about cats. Especially, I thought that was a great game, and then anything with cats. So I was excited about that when I saw it on Garrett's list that we get to talk about it because I get to talk about my cats. So go ahead, back to you.
Victor, do you have
Done
any?
talking about my cats.
I seem to notice a lot of horror-based items. I think that's probably what we're going to see more of a resurgence in.
Well, I think the one thing about horror that makes it, they can do it on a much limited budget too. They don't necessarily require all the special effects. They can live with a lot more of the jump scares, a lot more of the psychological horror. And I think horror is one of those things that tends to be pretty popular, even more so now. It just tends to be something that continues to drive audiences. Maybe not huge budgets, but again, you don't require huge budgets to make a good horror franchise either. So.
Well, and I think with the horror thing is they saw Last of Us, which is horror, The Walking Dead. I think that's just done so well that they're like, oh, then this one will do well too. This one will do well. And that's my thing is horror. So I'm excited for anything horror.
Yeah,
But I think it's just because it's popular. They all kind of seem to do well. So they're like, oh, money.
And like one franchise that people wanted more of, but Sony decided not to. Well, apparently Days Gone is being considered. So, you know, that was a good one. Not scary depending on your perspective, but Detective Pikachu 2 is already in the works. Duke Nukem is apparently back in the mix, and I'm like, I remember back when Jean-Claude Van Damme was supposed to play him back in the day, so that's another one of those believe it when the cameras roll. Getting back to horror, Dead by Daylight, they've apparently talked about that, and I'm like, that could be interesting. And of course, then you get the long-standing rumors, and I'm like, I think we'll see new games in the series. One of them for sure, I know we'll definitely see before we get content, but they're still trying to consider Call of Duty, Half-Life, Portal, Splinter Cell, and then it got really interesting. Someone said they're kicking around Mass Effect, and I'm like, well, let's see them get a new game out that actually doesn't upset everybody with the ending, then we will worry about a series. Michael, you want to do more?
Yeah, I mean, well, a couple of them. You know, System Shock would be a good one. We saw the resurgence with the re-release of that and the VR or the remaster of it. Obviously, a new Dragon's Lair movie has been rumored. For those who saw the original back in what, 81? 82?
The Coin Killer.
And then, of course, Sleeping Dogs, another game that was fairly, it's popular, but it was not as popular as some of the more current ones. But again, another one that would be a good franchise that they could build off of. So.
And real quick before we move on, to give you an idea, this is one of those that we were hearing about forever. When Sleeping Dogs was first brought to our attention, it was to star Bruce Willis and Billy Bob Thornton, so that gives you an idea. We were still living outside of Seattle with just the one office when that was first pitched many years ago, so this is one that's been circulating. And our granddaughter will probably love the idea of a Poppy Playtime apparently is being pitched. So, now, did you guys have anything else, or should we open it up to questions? Okay, so now it's time to face the music. If you have questions, we're ready to hear them.
If you have questions about our cats, I'll be happy.
We only have 2, but we're picking up number 3 tomorrow. So.
So I actually have many questions, but I'm just going to keep 2 shows. The first one you mentioned something about Jack Black. What exactly does that mean?
Well, Jack Black's been involved, he's attached to a lot of stuff. So we got, obviously he's in Borderlands voicing Claptrap. He's attached to Zelda, he's been attached to Minecraft. He's, as they say in the industry, he's the flavor of the month right now, that if you're doing a video game movie, everybody wants to attach Jack Black to it in some way, shape, or form, even if it's just to voice a character. Because he's very good at it, he's a gamer, so he knows what he's talking about, and he promotes the stuff tirelessly.
Got it. All right. And also, I wanted to ask you about, I mean, you did mention it yesterday, specifically, they were thinking of, well, the remaster or remake. I didn't hear it right, or is it more on the senior side?
So they're kicking around ideas for another game. We've heard one's in early development. The rights to it, I believe, are still at Netflix. There was some talk that was happening, it fell apart. To give you an idea, the original pitch for BioShock goes all the way back to Wentworth Miller from Prison Break. And that fell apart with Gore Verbinski, who did the Pirates of the Caribbean film, was going to direct. It's fallen apart. We've heard it's coming, it's not coming, it's coming, it's not coming. About 2 weeks ago, about 2 months ago, we started to hear, no, the rights are still there. They're still interested. It's extremely expensive and they can't crack the script, but they still want to make it happen. And it would definitely be based on the first 2 games versus BioShock Infinite.
Okay.
A lot of these things ride on like if Fallout's going to do well, even though it's not.
Right,
absolutely.
Is Fallout going to do well? And if The Last of Us did well, is it going to keep doing well? Netflix also does animation. You know, you have Cuphead was an animated series. You have
Cyberpunk 2077,
Yeah.
and you got Paramount Plus doing Arc.
And then-
And Halo.
And then
Halo.
they went with live action Sonic, and then they have animated Mario. So it all depends.
Peacock's got Twisted Metal, so obviously they got a 2nd season coming, and they're very anxious to do that. And you can just, it's like you said, it's open season. If we get a couple more of these things hit everybody, they're already kicking. I mean, this is the honest truth. They've even looked at how do we make Monopoly and Candyland into movies. They've been kicking those around for the better part of 15 to 20 years. And Battleship tanking kind of put a hold on them, but those are back in play now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just wanted to ask if you guys liked any series or movies that was then turned into a video game. I mean, I know I literally love John Cena as Peacemaker in Mortal Kombat.
That's a great one. You know, I'm going to go with Star Trek Elite Force or Elite Force 2. I have to say I like the idea of having an infinite mod phaser that would take down the Borgs with no adaptation much better than the let's go in the conference room and discuss it approach on Star Trek. I definitely more the Wrath-a-Con, let's see some action approach. So for me, that would be mine. What about you guys?
Yeah, I mean, well, obviously Star Wars has always been a huge one they've taken out. So everything from Pod Racer to the Rogue Squadron to, for a long time they were doing, every movie that came out they were doing a video game on. And that kind of died, thankfully, because in most cases those were quick cash grabs that weren't great. But I think there are some that could go back to that and maybe make some, we're still waiting for the next great Alien game after Isolation. There hasn't been much at all. So maybe if we were to see some more the Alien movies kind of take off, that we could actually see a good game based on that.
I did want to mention, I was going to say Predator, and then I realized there is something to tell. We should have mentioned this yesterday. Ilphonic, who made Predator Hunting Grounds, took it over, the direct publishing, so they announced that there's 2 DLCs coming. I believe they're free. There are some updates coming, and it will come to Xbox as well now that it's not officially Sony/PC. PC only, so.
And John Wick deserves a good.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, now they
Not
do have
that
the
Hex John Wick.
Well, the Hex was actually not too bad, but it was not really a John Wick game in the sense that it didn't really take into the bullet time, the whole consideration of that. So I think a John Wick video game, well done John Wick video game would be a really good IP to work off of.
I didn't think I had one, but this one's kind of tame. But I like the Jurassic World game. How you let the dinosaurs come in and they eat your patrons. I don't
I don't
know.
let them eat the patrons, they escape and then they eat the
I know, but it makes
patrons.
me laugh. I don't know. They did a really good job with that, and I like anything with the dinosaurs.
It is pretty entertaining.
Yeah, I think it's entertaining. I think considering, I think they did a pretty good job with that one, and that's kind of more my speed. So I like that. I couldn't think of one until you guys were talking. I go, oh yeah, that's Jurassic Park one. That was a cute one.
I think
The patrons. It's funny.
mine would be Homelander, Mortal Kombat, or what they're doing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre and the Killer Clowns interface would be.
Duh.
Yeah, obviously,
Oh my
the Killer Clowns
Oh
game
my-
coming out.
I promised myself I would not talk about the clowns. We did the San Diego Comic-Con panel, and it was like an hour long, and all I talked about was the Killer Clowns game. And I was so mortified afterwards because I'm obsessed with Killer Clowns and the fact that it's going to be a video game. And I said, this time, I don't care what they ask, I'm not talking about the clowns, and I'm talking about the clowns. That is my number one. It's not even out yet, but when that game comes out, I'm taking the week off and I'm playing the clowns. I'm so excited. That looks cool. So I don't know if it's good, but that's the one that's going to be my favorite. It's probably horrible, but
They had a
it's fun.
gaming conference about a week ago, and apparently that was the standout game from everything. I can tell you this, the footage we got of the team we had playing it got more hits than all of the other footage and coverage from the show combined. And my wife, the moment I mentioned that, was like, nope.
Oh my.
Clowns are not an option, so I'll be up playing. It was
Jen,
nope.
you would hate my master sister. I have clowns all over that.
I will not be visiting anytime soon.
I did have one other I wanted to mention. I know they've only made 2 games, but I think Rage would be fantastic. Post-apocalypse, FPS, I mean, if Fallout hits, that's one, so. But that would be game to series.
Maybe a Doom that wasn't terrible.
Yeah. Or Quake even. I'll take Quake even. It's not a possibility.
Hi. This is a question of advice for screenwriters. How do you balance between appealing to fans of video games and to newcomers, and does that vary per IP?
That's a great
I think you should always, that's tough, because I think you have to make it an entertaining story that appeals to everybody, whether they're gamers or not. But I don't think you can do one without upsetting the other. So if you go with a storyline that tries to stay close to the gaming IP, if you vary from that, you're gonna upset the gamers. But sometimes if you don't vary from that, if you're not familiar enough with the gaming IP, you lose a lot of the translation. So I think you have to make it appeal to a broader audience, because if you're only appealing to gamers, you probably won't be as successful as you need to be. But at the same time, if you're completely ignoring those that made you popular in the first place, you're not going to get a lot of good. The gamers tend to be a very vocal crowd, and you're going to lose a lot in that too. So I think it is a balancing act. I think you need to try to appeal to them as much as your base as much as you can, but also understand that not everybody's going to be a gamer that might be interested in seeing the movie.
Did you have something?
No, that was.
Yeah, so I'll give you a really quick one. I had a couple blink and you'll miss me moments in Postal and Far Cry the movie, as we've got a gaming documentary coming out that we filmed during the pandemic, should be this year, about the Postal game franchise. One of the things I can tell you is the director is very, very, very maligned from the Postal and Far Cry. And I actually found him to be quite a very good guy, that when he got to direct his original stuff, he did quite well. And he would tell me the biggest problem is, like we mentioned earlier, we get the rights to this and they immediately come out. Can't make it do this, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. And they give you a laundry list of all the things you can't do. You're stuck with basically the name. So you have to basically create a story that's somewhat loosely based on the name of the franchise that doesn't hit their laundry list. So why do you do it? Well, as he said, because you make money on the name, you're going to get flamed by everyone saying this stinks, it's not like the game, but then you use those profits to fund your dramas and your other stuff. And that's the problem. Essentially, we're not going to care about quality, make us some money. And now you have the studios saying, we're tired of taking a check and seeing our franchises run into the ground. And you can, in many ways, you could thank Marvel for that, because everybody laughed at them when they said, we're tired of this, we're going to start making our own movies. Nobody wanted to work with them. Well, now they're all singing a different tune. You know, let's not forget it. Sony apparently had the option for $50 million, could have had every single Marvel character, and they said, nah, we just want Spider-Man. By your decision, I am sure they're kicking themselves over many times. But look who's made the better films. And look who had to go to Marvel saying, can you help us out? So, go figure. So hopefully that answers that a little roundabout way.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Kind of in a similar thing, but specifically when you're trying to market to the pre-existing fans of the thing, how do you ride the line between basically nostalgia bait and making a genuine addition to the franchise or the canon?
That's all you.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough, because if you look at Last of Us, where they kind of almost verbatim, I wouldn't say verbatim, they do follow the game fairly closely. One of the problems with that is your fans kind of know what's coming, right? So they may not know what episode, but they kind of know what's coming. But at the same time, for those who haven't played the games, they're going to be surprised, particularly with Last of Us Part 2, which I won't get into again. But
yeah,
but at the same time, you want to build upon it, because the other part of that is you want to have something that extends more than one season or 2 seasons. Witcher is probably a good one there. If you stick too closely to the game or games that made it popular, you pretty much run the story out before you can even get there. So it's all about, you've got to build on the characters and tell other stories that are in that same universe but don't necessarily follow the game verbatim. And I think that's a complication between you're playing an open world ended game like Witcher, where there's lots of side quests and you can kind of tell the main story but you can kind of veer off of it, versus something that's very story driven like Last of Us or even Game of Thrones, where you're kind of stuck to the medium that already exists, and kind of limits how far you can take and how many series you can go. So
I kind of like it when they tell a story that appeals to everybody, but put in little tiny blurbles that the video game people would like recognize. Like they could be playing or watching the show and they go, oh, that was from the video game, but it's kind of obscure that the normal person wouldn't like catch it. So I think that's a good way to kind of give a little nod that say, hey, we know you played the game. We want to give this to you people and like the fans of the video game. So I kind of like that, but it's still good enough and broad enough that everybody could, without missing it. You know, so I like it when they do that stuff. Feels special to the folks that play the video game.
Just tweaking whatever you can to still keep the fans, giving them what they want, but surprising them at the same time. And then it's a separate medium. A video game is completely different than a movie. You can get away with different things. You can do separate things. So you kind of have to tweak it because when you can get away with the video games, the MPAA lets you get away with when you go to bit.
Hi, so this is a question about Borderlands. I saw Moxie in the trailer, so I was wondering if you guys thought that it would translate well to have Handsome Jack on screen. That's a possibility.
I believe that. Or should they get a sequel?
That's
But
what
I think, I mean, it's a given. If you're going to stay in that universe, you've got to put Handsome Jack in the mix.
Who do you guys think can play him?
Oh,
That's
wow,
really
that's a
hard.
good question.
Who do you think? Do you have anybody?
The voice actor.
I know, that's the other thing, right, is how do you keep it to the voice actor versus trying to cast him as somebody who maybe is more of a screen actor, right?
Jake Gyllenhaal.
I want to throw out Chris Pine.
That actually does.
Wasn't he based
Because
on
I'm thinking about the way he did his character in Wish. I could see that working.
Wasn't he based off of Nathan Fillion?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
Nathan
one of the
Fillion
rumors.
would be another good choice.
Young Jim Carrey would have been perfect.
Yeah.
Good question.
So we actually have a question for you, and if we don't get to all of you, obviously you can message that over. What would you like to see adapted? I had one that I used to kick out. I'd like to see the classic XCOM games adapted. That's where the UFOs invade and you have to do the special forces team to stop them. I think that'd be a fantastic series or animation, so that would be mine. So what do you got?
You kind of briefly touched on it earlier, but as you guys have been talking, I've been remembering rumors about Mass Effect.
Yeah.
And that, I think if I remember right, it might have been shortly before COVID, so I mean, that might have been 100 years ago. I think Henry Cavill stirred up some fervor on the internet because he posted some Instagram posts of like doing research or something.
He's an avid gamer, that is for sure.
Yeah, it was like when people zoomed in on the paperwork that he had, it was referencing Mass Effect stuff. So they were thinking, oh, is it going to be a movie, whatever? But I don't know.
Well, he has Warhammer coming out that he's working on. If that does really well, he really could probably spearhead any number of these.
I do. Sorry, let us be with it. 1,000% agree with you guys. I'm really happy that we're steering more towards shows, series versus movie adaptations because, like I said, you squeeze it into 2 hours. It's
And see, I would like to see Dead Space done
Oh,
in an actual, and again, not as a movie, because I think it would be, you could do it as a movie, but I'd like to see Dead Space as a series, a streaming series. Again, go back to the horror thing, which is popular. Dead Space takes a lot of tropes from other sci-fi franchises. It takes a lot from The Thing. It takes a lot of stuff from Alien. I think Doom even has some essence in there as well. But again, that's something that can be really well done if it's done, given enough of the time frame to do it in. It's horror. It'd be easy to kind of deliver a good story on that, and that's something that I'd like to really see. I know they've done some animated. I think was it Aftermath?
Yeah, Aftermath. They've done a couple.
They've done a couple of animated ones, but I'd like to see a full live action of Dead Space. I think that could be really well done.
Even the Callisto Protocol.
Callisto Protocol
Just
would be
take the
another one.
cutscenes from the game and throw it together. There's your movie.
Destroy all humans.
Oh,
Oh, there you go.
absolutely. Stop the remasters and let's just do it. Only if they could get Christian Slater or Jack Nicholson to voice it. That would have to, that would have to be. That just, what do you have one?
Oh, Alan Wake.
Oh.
Why haven't you
My favorite
mentioned
game
that?
of all time.
All people's favorite game.
Yep.
Yeah, and I mean that does have a lot of live action
Yeah.
in it already. But I 100% agree. Again, that's another one that I would love to see. A series done on it. 'Cause again, I think there's just so much more. The games have a lot of storytelling involved. You try to cut that down to a 2 or 3 hour thing, it just really loses a lot in translation. Too much sacrifice for that. But again, that would be another that I would love to see.
Yeah, so hand over here.
Jack and Daxter.
Oh, absolutely. You know, there was some talk when the Ratchet and Clank animated film didn't do as well. I know they were looking at Sly Cooper, they were looking at that one. Maybe it's time for them to dust that one off. That would be, I think as a series it would work, absolutely. Go ahead.
Infamous.
Oh, you like the original, or would you go all the way to Second Son?
I played the first one, second one, and the Second Son. So I prefer like the Cole.
Oh, that's really good. Go ahead.
I would love to see Sekiro.
I'm sorry, which one?
Sekiro.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Control.
Oh, absolutely.
Well, they can tie that into Alan Wake and make a whole universe put together with it.
Yeah, it's gonna be-
Quantum breaking, though technically that's not part of the Alan Wake universe.
Oh, go ahead.
I had the idea of doing like an Armored Core movie, or like an Armored Core movie. It must be a series.
Interesting.
Armored Core.
Anyone else? Oh, go ahead.
I heard they're making a Knights of the Old Republic.
Yeah, they're remastering it, supposedly. It was dead, and now it's apparently back on again.
They're going to make a movie of this?
I prefer
Probably not. Well, there is a movie coming that, if it goes before the cameras, is supposed to deal with the early form, like the first person to be force sensitive. So, you know, we'll see how that goes.
They're doing a Mandalorian Grogu movie.
Yeah.
So I know that it's possible to do the Star Wars Knights of the Republic, and I think that would be an awesome one, at least the first one.
I think the Acolyte series may dance around some of that too, even though it's not as far back as that. I think they're dancing around some of the old Republic stuff now in live action. Go ahead.
Red Dead Redemption.
Oh yeah, a given. Red Dead Redemption, Grand Theft Auto, absolutely.
I could go work. So.
You're the war?
Here's the war. Dave Bautista was talking about it for a while, but it's kind of like they're hoping, but it's, yeah. That would be great. We'll get over there. Go ahead. Oh, this side, right back here?
Yep.
Go ahead.
I already talked about the Borderlands movie and that they built Borderlands 2 movie, but I'd really love to see Borderlands pre-sequel.
Oh, that'd be
It's
awesome.
my favorite game.
Yeah.
Go bouncing around on that moon.
On the moon.
Yeah, in that dune buggy. Yeah, absolutely. But can you imagine the cast having to stop to air up every like 10 minutes or so?
And the oxygen
Yeah,
cancers.
that would be funny. Right here, please.
Yeah, a Metroid movie.
Metroid, yeah, long overdue.
And
Long.
Nintendo franchises in general. We talk about Legend of Zelda, Super Mario obviously just came out, but I think Nintendo franchises in general are kind of long overdue.
Absolutely. Got some in the back. We'll start working our way back. Go ahead.
Evil Within.
Evil Within, absolutely.
Horror themed again.
Horror themed, yeah. I'm surprised we haven't had a third game by now, but yeah. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, have you heard this called The Wolf Among Us?
Yes. Werewolf games, right there. These.
Oh,
Oh, go ahead.
Bad Karma.
Bad Karma. There you go. Yeah. That's I like that idea. Okay, we'll try to get everyone in the back there.
Yakuza series.
Yeah, I think that's a given. That definitely needs to be a
the
TV
Persona
show.
games too.
Will there be a remake of Postal? Because I know that it existed back then. There was a movie of Postal with Zach Braff in it.
There is.
Will there be like a remake, like an awesome version?
You know, this is sad because I actually deal with them on a regular basis. They had me voice a very quick line in the last game, and then I'm in the documentary that we've been waiting for 2.5, 3 years to come out. I know their focus right now is to continue to add content to the new game, well, not the newest game, and Postal no regrets. And they will hope to have something in the future, but right now they've not said anything about a new movie. Now, of course, knowing my luck, they're going to put the documentary out, and someone is going to make an announcement of a new movie at the end of it. But no discussions as of yet. But as soon as they have something, they always call me up and say, "Hey, just giving you a heads up. We're going to let this news get out soon, so now's your chance to do it." So hopefully, I'm always up for more Postal stuff.
I'd be up for a Baldur's Gate movie. Show.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate.
Skyrim or an Elder Scrolls. Fallout does well.
I'm going to go back and say Prey.
Original
Maybe not
or
the
the remake?
either. Either. I'm okay with either one. Sorry, over here?
Oh, sorry. I just had a wild idea. Probably nobody's asking for this but me. But I just remembered my old favorites, the old LucasArts games. Like if I could see some
Outlaw?
animated features of that, like Zack McCracken.
Oh,
Grim
yes.
Fandango,
Day of the Tentacle?
Day of the Tentacle.
Yeah. Full throttle. Let's just bring it back. They tried to do a sequel and anyway. So we got the last question signed, folks. We'll be outside for a little bit. You can talk to us, or you can just send us a message here. And thank you so much for coming on this Ready Day. We'll talk to you all soon.